All right, it's 1 o'clock, so we will begin. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Michigan Works Association 2021 Annual Conference. My name is Marty Scarborough, and I'm a Business Services Representative with Northwest Michigan Works in the Traverse City office. On behalf of the staff at the association and all of our sponsors, we thank you so much for being part of the conference and this session titled Service Navigation Mapping, Not Your Typical Treasure Map. Please be sure to visit the exhibitor booths during the designated exhibit hall times. Before we begin today's session, there's a few housekeeping things that I'd like to share with all of you. Please make sure your audio is muted. This session will have a Q&A, but please hold all of your questions until the end. You can enter your questions in the chat, and I will make sure that we address those questions to the presenter after the presentation. There's also a Q&A section as well that you can list your questions if you'd like, right next to the chat feature. We are eager for your feedback about the conference and the session, so please take a few moments to complete the short survey that is in the chat. Presentations will be available post-conference on the Michigan Works Association website. Now I would like to introduce your speakers for the session. Tasha Evans, Policy Manager for West Michigan Works. Abby Monterusso, Policy Manager for West Michigan Works. Erin Kenny, Policy Manager for West Michigan Works.
Good afternoon, everyone. Like us, I'm guessing some of you have become, dare I say, comfortable with giving presentations during virtual or remote work. However, that's probably because it's in a virtual platform that you've become familiar with over time. So knowing that this was a new virtual platform for the three of us, we did want to minimize the possibility of any tech issues while presenting, sharing screens, switching presenters. So we did opt to record our presentation and play that recording for you. We'll be happy to answer questions following the playing of the recording, so feel free to put those in the chat as they come up.
Afternoon, and welcome to the West Michigan Works presentation regarding our program and service navigation process mapping. Does this image ever represent how you feel working within programs or navigating the rules, regulations, or procedures? Whether you are a newbie to workforce development or a seasoned staff member, it can often be complicated for both staff and job seekers. Abby, Tasha, and I will each provide some background and information about how we work together to solve, or at least minimize, some of the complications. Our maps were recently cited as a best practice by the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity staff during a recent programmatic review. So we are happy to share and host this presentation. While some of this information is specific to our organization, we feel there are many aspects of this material that can be incorporated into your operations to help navigate programs and services. Let's begin with the why. To truly understand the journey and final products, allow us to share with you some background of how we got here. There are numerous resources to help manage and operate a program. The Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, 298 pages. The Federal Register or Final Regulations, almost 400 pages. Various training employment guidance letters and training employment notices issued over various years regarding multiple aspects. The WIOA, ES, trade, and path manuals. Workforce GPS, which provides additional resources, trainings, and documents related to program delivery and navigation. Various state policy issuances, spanning over decades, issued or updated at various periods covering multiple topics. State database guidance and standards, which is updated continuously and also includes specific guidance documents. And finally, there's the local policies and procedures, which are driven by organizational preferences and program delivery design. As you can see, some of these are driven by the Department of Labor, some by our state agency, and many are established local procedures and preferences. There are simply a lot of resources. Thus, the need to manage resources, rules, and procedures. Trying to incorporate all the resources, rules, and procedures for both staff and customers was challenging, but it was important to our organization to develop a better way to provide structure and navigation of our programs and services. Before we discuss our maps and guidance, it may be helpful to know a little about the structure of our organization and our roles in this process. As West Michigan Works, we provide services within a 7-county region through 8 one-stop service centers. Our organization is structured as talent, retention, and business service divisions within our agency. On the talent solutions side of the MWA are the positions of policy managers. This position is different than a talent solutions or a service center manager or a program-specific assistant manager. As policy managers, we are program-specific and responsible for interpreting, guiding, and ensuring the implementation of the various rules, regulations, and procedures across all workforce funding sources. However, the talent solutions managers, assistant managers, and staff are responsible for the actual implementation and operation of such rules, regulations, and procedures. Abby?
As policy managers, we began creating staff guides, which blended local procedures, OSMIS data entry instruction, sprinkled with rules or policies to help tie all the information together. So we want to spend a little bit of time explaining these initial documents. However, when we first started creating the staff guides, it became quite chaotic. We would have multiple staff guides across programs with the same or similar guidance, and so remembering to update each and every staff guide when a change was made became very difficult to manage. This issue then led us to create consistent staff guides across all programs wherever possible. The result is that we now have program-specific staff guides that are tailored to a particular process that only applies to that specific program. For example, a staff guide on the waiver of training requirements for TAA is specific only to TAA and therefore a program-specific staff guide. Then we have what we refer to as ROC staff guides that provide consistent guidance across all programs, wherever those processes are universal across programs. An example of this would be the ISS IEP staff guide. This is present in all programs and therefore is a ROC staff guide, providing consistent guidance of the ISS IEP regardless of the program. Whether it is a program-specific or a ROC staff guide, we use the same template when creating them. This provides consistency for users of the guides to recognize the format and know where to look for things. The first part of the staff guide is the title, which introduces what the staff guide covers. Next is a brief description of the purpose or end goal of the staff guide. The subtitles in the staff guide correspond with the outline titles in the process map, which you will see a little later in this presentation. The goal in each of these sections is to clearly state who is responsible for the action items and who is responsible to perform those actions. We try to use bulleted or numbered lists to keep guidance concise wherever possible. We include visual tools such as screenshots or hyperlinks to sample forms. We also identify any best practices or additional notes that may need to be included for more specific guidance. The footer of the staff guide lets the user know which programs are affected by the guidance and when the effective and revised dates occurred. Each staff guide also contains an OSMIS data entry section where specific instructions or examples can be provided, such as which activity to enter, what to label the case note, or when to update the ISS IEP. Next steps are also included in each of the staff guides to provide clear next steps for the staff and job seeker. We quickly realized that creating many staff guides, in addition to all the other information, made things more difficult to locate and know how to perform various program functions. This then led to mapping, a way to provide flow and structure of our services while incorporating procedures, OSMIS, rules, and tips. Now that you are a little more familiar with the staff guides, which were our starting point, we will continue with the process that led to the creation of the process maps. As you might expect, the beginning was not very pretty and sometimes extremely overwhelming. Initially, we considered creating a manual, but eventually decided on flowcharts, process maps, which would provide a less complex concept of service delivery and especially appeal to those who are more visual learners. The process required many meetings over months and months. Some meetings were among all program policy managers to develop a standard concept and overall flow. Then meetings and work groups with staff involved in specific programs to help determine all the pieces we wanted to include and how best to do that. And so began the process of prototyping, to develop appropriate flow and incorporate a variety of scenarios to map out the process for each program, along with embedding links to staff guides within the flow to provide more specific guidance. Staff guides also include links to additional resources. Therefore, not every resource had to be identified on the map. As always, the best way to create a successful product is to have the end user involved throughout the application and testing phases. Product users incorporated the maps into their work to test the flow and identify any issues, adjustments, or questions. Unlike Mr. Burns, we relied and continue to rely heavily on our staff's testing and feedback to make continuous improvements to our maps and guidance. The testing and feedback, along with policy or procedural changes, ensures that our maps and staff guides are current and accurate living documents. The process of testing, feedback, and modifications also helps to create a sense of ownership of the maps between the policy managers who develop the products and the staff who use them to guide their flow of service delivery. This project has also helped us identify gaps in knowledge or misinformation regarding staff understanding of various procedures or rules, which is helpful for training. And now I would like to turn it over to Tasha.
So now that you've heard a little about the background of our maps, let's get started with some quick map visuals and demonstrations to provide you a better idea of what these look like and how they function. Each of our program maps have 3 different parts designated for all levels of users. The face of the map includes the overall process flow and provides staff a big picture visual of the program steps for different stops throughout job seeker participation. The outline is connected to the corresponding step and serves as a checklist or items of to-do. It also provides quick access to required forms and useful resources. And lastly, each step includes a full staff guide that aligns directly with the content in the outline. We currently have maps built for TAA, PATH, Employment Services, Youth, and WIOA programs. So let's take a closer look. I'm going to select the WIOA map, since that's the one I'm most familiar with. So all of our maps are housed on our West Michigan Works intranet. Staff are encouraged to access the map links directly from this site to ensure that we have the most up-to-date forms and guidance. So I'm going to click it here. And as you can see, this map is essentially a Word document that was converted into a PDF. For this particular map, when we include the outline, it is a total of 18 pages. So what we've done is on the bottom right-hand corner of all of our maps, we've included a return key. So by selecting the return key, it's going to bring you to the face of the map. And that doesn't matter where in the document you are or what page you're on. If you click it, it's going to go right back up to the front. All of our maps also have an area where staff can report a mistake. So by clicking here, once they identify either whether it's a spelling error or whether it's misguidance or something that wasn't updated, while they're in the map, instead of having to write it down or email it to us later, they can click here and it's going to open another form on our intranet. They select the map. So in this case, we'll select adult dislocated worker. They select what the issue is, let's say forms, and then training approval form, and then they can go ahead and type what the issue is. So let's say the EEO tagline is outdated. So we forgot to update it, so they'll send that over, they hit submit, and then this form routes to the corresponding policy manager to take a look at the issue and make the edit. In this case, this is going to route to me because this particular map, or the WIOA Adult Dislocated Worker Program, is one of my programs. Let's go back to the map. So on the left side of the map, we have the ROC staff guides, as Abby mentioned earlier in the presentation. These guides are used across programs when applicable, but by housing them on the face of the map, staff can easily access the information without having to remember what step the guidance is in, or if for guidance that's applicable throughout participation. For example, WIOA dislocated worker and adult have funding caps on supports that are different than the funding caps associated with TAA. Since our WIOA coaches are also our TAA coaches, it's important for them to be able to reference what those caps are when coaching a job seeker. So for WIOA, if I click on support service chart, it'll come up and I can easily see what those caps are and what documentation will be needed to collect from the job seeker to request the support. And then click back. When looking at the overall process flow, we assess the various phases in each of the programs and group the steps together on the map. So this makes it easy for staff to determine where the job seeker is at with their career development, and is especially helpful to ensure we're not duplicating services with our community partners or across programs. This map starts with service navigation. Service navigation is part of Wagner-Peyser or employment services. And so clicking the box will take you to the map outline that will ultimately take you right to the ES map. So if I click here and then I click service navigation, this is the employment service map that's going to open so that staff can easily access all of the guidance in the ES map. Here is the QAS check. So QAS is quality assurance staff. We have quality assurance staff check all of our files, typically at the time of enrollment and at the time of exit. So this serves as a backup to coaches, ensures we have completed files, and is a check and balance for data validation to ensure accuracy into OSMAs. So this, after enrollment in this particular map, it's going to touch the quality assurance. It's going to go right on through, and then at that time of exit, it will also touch the quality assurance. This map starts with step 1 and goes through step 1 through 7 that are clearly marked on the map. So these steps correspond with what we refer to as the career point model. This model is used universally by all of the West Michigan Works coaches, and many of the guidance provided in these steps link to the same documents regardless of the program. So that's especially true in step 2 coaching, because our West Michigan Works coach, regardless of program, are all following the same coaching principles. As you make your way around the map to step 3, this is support. So although assessing the need for supports begins at the time of registration, they're typically provided throughout coaching and prior to beginning training or job search. So we have it here with arrows going in and out of step 2 and in and out of step 4. Just seems to be the logical place to make sure that this is added into the program. Steps 4 and 5 are specifically for job seekers who are in need of a credential, and 6 and 7 is where the job seeker assembles their completed career portfolio and begins focused or targeted job search. So let's say for demonstration purposes that the job seeker has been approved to attend training and is going to enter here step 5. So they've been through coaching, we've assessed supports, we've gone through the training approval, and now they're going to start training. So as you can see, the outline reminds the coach about attendance forms, mileage forms, support services, measurable skill gains, gaps in training, collecting the credentials, de-obligating any remaining funds, entering activities into OSMAs, and next steps. It also includes the quick links to the forms and resources that staff may need to reference frequently throughout this point of participation. So let's assume that the training activity that the job seeker has entered is flagging an MSG or a measurable skill gain in OSMAs. However, the coach is not familiar with or not sure about allowable MSGs. And so for this particular training or what documentation is required in the file, I'm going to click on measurable skill gain chart. By clicking on that, the staff can quick reference the skill gain types and determine who's included, what's triggering the MSG and OSMAs, and what documentation needs to be collected from the job seeker. So that quick access is right there in the outline. For newer staff or staff who need additional guidance on monitoring and completing training, they can access the full staff guide by clicking on the outline title. So in this particular map, we have click here for staff guide, just so it's really clear with an arrow. But in most all of our maps, the title of the outline will be the full staff guide. So, and as you can see highlighted in teal, like here and throughout the document, those are the bullet points that were in the outline. So they're the section headers in the full staff guide. The full guide also includes the quick links to additional guidance and needed forms so that staff do not need to reference back to the map once they have the full guide open. So once they're here, they can access all of the same forms and documents that they were able to access in the outline. Okay, I'm going to show you one other cool feature that we've been adding to the maps, and those are sample forms. So if I click decision making, this form here is the career pathway form. So we use this as a tool to help job seekers identify career goals and how they may achieve those goals through education and training. So this is like a worksheet, and it's a blank worksheet that the coach would work together with the job seeker. If the coach is new, or if the coach isn't sure how to fill out the form, we've included next to it the sample. So it's kind of on the same line. You just click on sample, and it will be the completed, or a copy of what the form would look like completed. So those are pretty cool features that we've been adding kind of slowly throughout in our maps. Okay, so that was a walkthrough to demonstrate how the WIOA Adult and Dislocated Worker map works. And although they all follow similar rules, each of our program maps have unique differences, mostly driven by the operational parameters of the program, but some are dictated, of course, by local design. So I'll now provide you with a brief highlight of each of our other program maps, and we'll start with PATH.
The goal of the PATH program is to assist our job seekers in obtaining employment that provides economic self-sufficiency. However, the path to get there is not necessarily one that occurs in sequential order. The PATH process map focuses on the overall flow a job seeker can take in the program, with the understanding that they may be in one or multiple different activities throughout their duration in PATH before completing the program. It all starts with receiving the referral from MDHHS. From there, we determine whether the job seeker will be attending AEP or PATH. Following the completion of AEP or PATH orientation, a job seeker will receive an intake appointment with their career coach. The job seeker will then be assigned their activity or activities to meet their participation requirements. The map gives a visual of the available activities, but clicking into the activities square would take you to the outline where you could view the staff guide for more specific information regarding each of the activities. Throughout a job seeker's participation, they will receive case management and career coaching services. The job seeker's case may change statuses along the way and eventually close, so the map provides a visual of the various courses a case could take. The second page of the PATH process map covers the ROC staff guides, those that cross multiple programs. The remainder of the PATH process map contains outlines for each of the squares you see on the map. The case management and career coaching square on the map contains the bulk of the various tasks a career coach completes day in and day out with their caseload, such as weekly meetings, career coaching, managing hours, etc. Now, Tasha will introduce you to the employment services map.
So the ES map follows the same concept as the other program maps, but is laid out slightly different. We kept the relevant ROCs consistent on the left, but added quick links for information that staff access frequently throughout the day. So those are located down here. The right side of the map has a navigation menu that includes information on job seeker resources, hiring events, and UIA related information. So for example, if I click on service navigation on this menu, the map will give you an outline of the resources with the links to the additional websites, staff guides, workshops, calendars, and tools for job seekers. So So the only thing different with the ES map is these titles do not open up into full staff guides. So any guidance that we have for ES is located directly on the outline of this map. The TAA map starts with the employer certification and information on how to schedule a worker benefit orientation and continues through the 7-step career point model. The unique part of this map is that we added gavels to indicate where notices of determination may be necessary should the job seeker request a service that he or she is not eligible for. To access the outline for training approvals on this particular map, you would click training approvals there, and as you can see, the map now displays the outline needed, forms, sample forms, and full staff guide for TAA training approvals. So just like the WIOA map, due to the complexity and the infrequent use of some of the TAA forms, we've included the samples on how to accurately complete these documents. So as you can see on this particular outline, we have a lot more samples that are directly correlated or connected to the TAA forms. So Erin will now introduce you to our last program map, which is youth.
The West Michigan Works Youth Map provides those same similar initial service center steps. However, the youth map also incorporates various JMG aspects of our youth service delivery model to help indicate any additional steps or documents. The map flow of youth differs slightly to provide greater focus on training, talent tours, and work experience, as we work with youth to help them build a resume and determine a career pathway. Although all 14 activities or elements are available to youth, those are really core to the youth program and are therefore centralized within the youth map. Youth can continue to circle through these activities, plus the other elements, until they are job or further post-secondary ready. Once the youth has been deemed job ready, they are referred to our talent development specialist to assist with job placement. Also unique to the youth map, support services are linked in the map, both during participation and at post-exit to illustrate these can be provided during the youth's active engagement and during their follow-up. One additional highlight within the youth map is a decision flowchart that was created to assist frontline staff determine those job seekers who might be a better fit for youth services. This flowchart helps the career navigators screen those who could either be served as an adult or youth and assists with suggesting the type of information to consider to offer the most appropriate option, which is based on the individual's background and service needs. This youth decision chart is built into the WIOA map, but is also linked within the youth map to help ensure appropriate consideration and evaluation by a variety of staff. As stated earlier, ROC staff guides are across programs and located within each of the maps to help ensure consistency within various core processes. Beyond those universal guides, the beginning phases of the youth process map are outlined and continue sequentially through exiting and follow-up. So regarding our maps, as with most processes, we identify and try to balance the positive and negative aspects of this product. Some of the challenges include map maintenance, making sure that when a rule or process is changed, we ensure all map documents reflect the necessary changes. Providing guidance for direct service versus contractor staff who are involved, and the processes may differ slightly. Special initiatives. With the opportunities for additional grant funding or program initiatives, we need to consider if these can or should be incorporated into existing maps, if only minor changes are required, or if we create supplemental maps when the differences are more complex or maybe short-term. While these can be challenging, let's now consider the benefits that we've identified. Our maps help ensure consistent delivery of services within local design. We feel they help organize a variety of information and guidance into a single location. The maps ultimately improve the customer experience, having staff who understand the flow of services and appropriate steps from start to finish. They help organize information for new staff onboarding. And finally, they provide a one-page service and program flow summary, which is especially helpful for visual learners. Therefore, we feel the positives outweigh the negatives and continue to operate and improve our maps for staff and customers. As we conclude our presentation, please note that our program maps do not negate the responsibility of staff to know policies, understand program manuals, or learn OSMIS data entry. The intention is really to provide staff and other program operators with the treasure of a quick, easy guide to navigate program flow and instruction within all the federal, state, and local resources. Although this presentation could only briefly cover many aspects of our maps, we hope that you gain some knowledge or spark some ideas of how you can develop similar products within your organization to help staff and customers navigate the vast sea of program, rules, regulations, and processes. We wish you all happy sailing.
Wow, that was a really great presentation. Lots of information, and I just want to say your graphics were great. They were so great. They were so funny, so relatable. Great job, guys. So I just want to say, like, some of the comments that we've seen in the chat, I mean, it seems like you're getting very positive feedback about your maps. And I know I put a question in there, which a lot of other people have too, about is there a way that we could share these, you know, amongst each other? I was a former career advisor, and all of the WIOA stuff and the PATH stuff and everything else can get very confusing. But these maps are really great. So is there a way that you guys can share them with the group or somehow get these out to other Michigan Works?
Yes, Marty, absolutely. So we're willing to share the maps. I think Erin had put in the chat. So they're connected to our intranet,
Mm-hmm.
so we can share the face of the maps and the outlines. They just wouldn't be clickable. But I think any one of us would be more than willing, if there was a Michigan Works organization that was interested, to have a one-on-one session with you to kind of go over what they look like and what you can click on and what pops up, and then share the content within the map as well. So they're you know, we're definitely willing to share. It's just a little bit difficult when they're on the intranet.
Yeah, and I totally get that and respect that. Would you guys be able to put your emails in the chat, and then maybe we can all write your email? Oh, they're up on the presentation. Sorry. I haven't had my afternoon cup of coffee. Can you tell? So we have some more questions here popping up. So someone said, or they asked, how receptive was the change for staff?
Honestly, I feel like at least for TAA and the WIOA adult dislocated worker, it took a little bit of intentional reminding of staff to access the map to find the most up-to-date recent forms and guidance. So, you know, as we mentioned prior to building the maps, there was sort of information all over the place. So our staff were looking where they thought that they should look, you know, and if they couldn't find what they needed, then they reach out to us to say, hey, is this, you know, is there guidance somewhere on this, or I'm not sure what to do in this particular situation. And then we'd answer their questions, but also refer them back to the map so that they could kind of get in the habit of that's their first go-to. So I do think it took a little bit of reminding and intentional focus, but now that they know how to use them, I think that all of our staff, and I'm not sure what they would do without the maps at this point.
Okay. And let me see here. Have you found that these maps save time with participant visitation and working with the staff?
I think ultimately that is the goal. So as our staff become more accustomed to using the maps and using those as a resource, of course, I think all Michigan Works are a little down with in-person traffic and that type of thing. So to truly test the maps and determine the level of efficiency, we're kind of all waiting to get back to normal times. But I would say yes. One of the documents that was featured in the youth map is that decision chart for those that kind of overlap adult or youth services. So it was important to kind of lay out some of those considerations for staff. So hopefully those kinds of questions are more easily answered and they can access those very quickly by going through the maps.
So it sounds like there might be some training with these maps, and then once everyone understands how they work, then it should just be very quick that they can just reference, right?
Correct.
Okay. So are you finding that these grants will be built into these maps, or will you be creating some new ones for that?
That's a good question. And one of the challenges that we listed as far as, I would say some of the grants that we've received kind of blend very nicely with the core processes that we already have with our WIOA or PATH or trade funding services. But there are certainly probably going to be opportunities where we're going to look at creating supplemental maps, depending on how long the grant may be for or how much it deviates from the existing map. So it's kind of a work in progress.
Okay. And is it very time intensive for the people that are putting these maps together and maintaining and managing the maps? Because you're right, everything changes. I mean, you could be doing WIOA one way, and then the next time there's some little caveat that's changed, which is just normal. So is it a lot for you guys to put those together and update that?
Sort of. However, that was one of the reasons that we built in the report a problem. So when career navigators or staff are in the maps and maybe they recognize something that doesn't look right or it doesn't function correctly, or, hey, we got notification that this, we're doing this differently, so then we all kind of own the map and the accuracy of the maps. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we do try and catch as much as we can as we are making changes to our policies or processes or procedures. But I mean, we're all human, so sometimes things get missed. But we share that responsibility with other staff to report issues as they encounter them or questions if it's not clear.
Okay. And so how do you get started with training your staff with these maps?
Well, I would say that we had a lot of staff involvement in the beginning, but of course you have staff turnover as well. I would say the maps are kind of self-explanatory. Just encouraging staff to use the maps as the resource, how to get to documents that they need. We all, as policy managers, host program-specific meetings with staff that work in those programs. So initially when we rolled the maps out, I think we all spent time training staff on the various steps throughout the map. And then as staff are onboarded, and we work with those staff or they come to our quarterly meetings, we touch on maps again, just to make sure that we're kind of consistently delivering that message.
Mm-hmm. And it's almost useful, or I shouldn't say almost, but these maps seem useful to cross-train other departments as well.
Correct. Yep. And we do have, staff that will change programs. So hopefully that they find that a little bit easier if they change positions within our organization.
Okay. Does anybody else on this have any other questions that they'd like to ask in the chat?
Marty, can you tell us if it would be most helpful to send copies of these maps to the Michigan Works Association to send out with our presentation, or to send it out some other way?
Yeah, I think that it would be beneficial to send it out to the Michigan Works Association, since they would have all of our contact information. So I would do that.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of positive comments here. So great job.
We put a lot of work into it, so if you guys want to replicate or copy even what we have, we understand. We support that completely. It'll save you a lot of time.
Yeah, I know with our organization, they're always talking about trying to condense, or how can they make it easier? You know, where can they put things? And so I think that this would be helpful for us too. Well, I don't see any more questions. Just everyone seems to be applauding all of you. So again, good job. Great job.
Well, we survived doing the maps for West Michigan Works. I'm not sure myself or my two counterparts are ready to do side gigs to do anybody else's maps, but you know, sometimes it helps. I would say Tasha was kind of the charge ahead policy manager that, you know, I think Abby and we all work together very well. But I think once you get that foundation down, and like we said during the presentation, everybody's organization operates a little bit differently, but hopefully it's at least a starting block for any other Michigan Works entity that wants to put something similar in place. I do think it's a great visual tool, and you're right, it is very challenging to organize all the information into, you know, do we create a manual? Do we create, you know, something else? And at least a process map helps to organize the information for everybody involved, really.
Yeah. And it's very useful that you can hyperlink everything. So it takes you right to the exact document, which is really helpful. Because I know sometimes with the intranet, it can be so cumbersome and so difficult to navigate, where you think something is, it's not. And it's in something that you didn't even think it could go in there. But
right.
So that's really, really helpful, I would say, to your staff. So is there anything else that you'd like to share about these maps? Any more last remarks? Okay.
I don't think so.
Well, I suppose we could give people that had attended this session some time back. So thank you for being here. Thank you for watching all of this. So Suzanne, you said, how should we look for receiving these? I believe Tasha said she's going to send it to the Michigan Works Association, who will then be able to send that out, hopefully. And if not, please take some time to write down their email addresses, which is on the screen, and contact these gals directly.